He's a #1 Amazon bestseller. He's an NLP manipulator. He's a property course seller. He's a Lamborghini driving multi-millionaire property guru. Forget that same old boring I am me narcissistic podcast format, because nobody gives a fuck. This podcast is all about you. So I'm taking these few seconds to thank you for subscribing, to thank you for leaving your 5-star reviews, and thank you for sharing this show with all of your friends. My team and I will keep bringing you these episodes and answering all of your burning questions in my Facebook community group called Property Crash Course. If you can just keep telling all of your friends about this show. So just to give you guys a bit of background, there's some joint venture partners that I have. Now, what they do is they join my program, and when I say join my program, there's nothing for sale. We don't sell any training or courses or anything like that. But they do access a members area, a membership site that I've got, which teaches them everything about service accommodation and guaranteed rent and rent to rent and how to find properties, high cash flowing properties, how to negotiate with the landlords, how to see how much profit they're going to make, how to structure the deals, how to talk to the landlords, how to close the deals, and then how to manage the properties so they produce cash flow, high cash flow every single month. So we have joint venture partners which are in different areas, different cities over the UK. And again, we just teach them everything they need to know. They come on board, then they go out and use these skills to find the deals. And then my company helps them, mentors them, answers their questions, structures or restructures deals for them, deals with any problems, put fires out, and just make sure that their business remains profitable, that we share together between us. So they're the operators and I oversee everything. That's my role in the company. Teach them everything, mentor them, get them up to speed, get them into the deals, show them the mistakes, show them where they can make more money, show them how to lose less money, basically mentor them so they can get everything that they need. So yeah, there's some partners that I have, and in a particular deal or deals in Southampton recently. Now, they went out and found the deals and put the deals together with my help. My company puts all the money in, so funds the deal, finances the deals, etc. So before the pandemic, as you can imagine, these deals or any deals looked like good deals. Now, to be honest, we probably paid a little bit more than we should have at that time for this particular block. It was a block with some flats in, and we did pay a little bit over the odds for these. These are rent-to-rent service accommodation deals. So we lease them from a landlord or an investor, and then we have the flexibility to do whatever we want with them. So these are actually used as service accommodation, short-term lets, etc. Okay. Now, the deals at the time when they were found and, sourced and put together and structured looked, like they were reasonable deals. But to be fair, we did pay a bit over the odds. Now, that's partly because I want to, keep expanding my, my joint venture partners' portfolio over there. And if we're paying a little bit more, it's absolutely fine. I mean, I've taken on deals myself where I've given the landlords 20, even 25% more than the market rent to get the deal. Now, I go into that in depth in another episode, but just to give you a summary, there was a property on at $1,250 a month. I had to pay $1,500 to get it. I was with my daughter. We went round to see the guy. He decided he wanted just a long-term tenant. He didn't want to do the service accommodation or us use it as like a hotel. He said that it just wouldn't work for him in the end. He was close. Then he decided to take on some sharers. Now, those sharers put the deposit down, paid for the credit check-in and referencing and everything else, and they were due to move in. I went back to see the landlord with my daughter, and in the end, we just had a conversation. And cut a long story short, I invited him to my barbecue, invited him around my house where we could look over all the paperwork and anything he was unsure of, any objections, we'd go through them together, which was part of the reason why he didn't want to do it. And in the end, he still said no. Then I offered him the maximum I could, which was £1,500 a month. Now, £1,500 a month for a property that he is advertised at £1,250 a month is a massive margin for any landlord. It may take you 5, even 10 years for the rent to go up that much, maybe even 15 years. And I just went straight in knowing how much the property would make and offered him the best I could, which was £1,500 a month for a property that he had advertised at £1,250 a month. And what do you think he said? Of course, we did the deal. 2.5, 3 years on, obviously we still have that deal. Now, the reason why I'm explaining that story to you is because when you know the numbers for the properties, you can pay over the odds to secure the deal. So one strategy that I have is for my or some of my joint venture partners, or particularly these joint venture partners on this particular deal, being specific in Southampton, is we paid a bit over the odds because we wanted the whole block. Because as it happens, we had another apartment in another block in Portsmouth, and the deal was that we were getting the whole block. Then the landlord changed their mind, and it started off with one deal, and then we would get the next and the next and the next. As it happens, because mixing tenants on ASTs with shortlets and Booking.com and Airbnb in the same building, a brand new building just converted, lots of the tenants got together, the tenants weren't happy, people were changing, coming in at all hours, as they do. And in the end, the tenants made so many complaints that the owners, decided that it's not really going to work. So we didn't get the other properties. And then it come to the point that in the end, we just decided to vacate the building, move out of that building. As it happens, the landlord did not give me my deposit back that I paid as well. So that's another challenge which we're working with, based on that landlord being a thief and not paying my deposit back. Even though the property was returned in the exact same condition or better, and they was completely happy, and they emailed and everything, they had cash flow problems. Their company went into administration that runs the block, etc., and they did some skullduggery. Anyway, in the end, they basically did not pay me the deposit back. So, due to no fault of our own. So we learned from that with the partners over there and decided, let's start looking for blocks of flats instead from the start to get the whole block. So then there's never people on ASTs mixed in with other people, which are shortlets or Booking.com or Airbnb or Home Away, etc. Short-term travelers like a hotel. So we found this particular property, and it was all of the properties in the building. So in the end, the landlord he's an investor. He's had them a very long time. He understands that we're going to make money on the back of his properties, and he just decided he wants a share in that profit. So in the end, we had to offer the landlord above the market rent to get all of the properties. Now, when I say above the market rent, I mean, if you can imagine, sometimes we go in around about 20% below the market rent. So let's say one property is £1,000 a month. We would normally offer in the region of about 750 based on no fees, no voids, no maintenance costs, no renewal fees, no evictions, and just no tenant finding fees. So really, that 25% reduction is more or less what they would get if they rented it through a high street agent, paid them management fees, paid them tenant finding fees, etc., plus we're guaranteeing no voids, no evictions. So when you compare that or us to a high street agent, it's much better for landlords to go with us. Anyway, now that would enable us to pay about 25% below. So this particular property, even at the market rent, we paid above the market rent. So let's say it was 1,000. We came in at this property around about probably, 1,100, maybe 1,150. So looking at that as a percentage based on us normally getting it at about 75% of the market rent, we ended up paying about 115% of the market rent. So we're way above, but we knew the numbers, we knew the margins, we knew it was going to make money, we had the whole block, we're not going to get tenants complaining, and then obviously it causes problems further down the line because the whole building would be shortlets, which is the model, so it wouldn't get confused. Anyway, We paid over the odds for this particular building. Now, what happened was before we got back to our final inspection on the property, because it needed a lot of work between us putting the offer in, having the offer accepted. This is a rent-to-rent service accommodation. I mean, when I'm talking about offers, etc., it's not purchasing. So we didn't need a mortgage. We didn't have to pay a mortgage deposit. We didn't need any credit. We didn't have to put a big mortgage deposit down in that sense. It was a rent-to-rent service accommodation deal. Okay, we rent it from the owner, and then we can do whatever we want. So we become in the position of the landlord. We step into the landlord's shoes. Okay. Now, when it came to, well, the landlord took a very long time to do the work. There had to be decoration. There had to be tiling in the bathrooms, finishing off. Tiles needed to be done, grouting. I think some carpets. I think some furniture, which they were doing. Some work outside in the garden to the block. Anyway, this went on for a long time, to be fair. It went on for about 4 months, if I'm totally honest. So the deal was ours. It went on for about 4 months. We signed the contract and everything else, which means it's exclusive. But there's a point in our contract where we go back and do a handover, a final inspection. So that means that everything that was agreed has been done by the landlord. The property gets signed off. When it's signed off, then we're responsible to... or then the clock has started ticking. So we're paying the rent monthly, etc., whether the property is empty or not. Okay. So it got to that particular point where he was about to go back for the final inspection. Now, because we'd worked with the landlord for 4 months already, we sent our contractors there, we sent our handyman there, we sent the cleaners there, everything else, doing all the bits that needed to be finished off so we could just rush this deal through, get it on for the summer, because the landlord is very, very, very slow. I mean, it'd been empty before and there was problems and they haven't done the work and they've just left it empty and it's gathering dust and it's just costing money. And we just wanted it done, dusted, dressed, styled, furnished, listed, and we can get clients in for the season, which is, well, April now, so that would have been March. Well, any minute now. It would have been within about a week or 10 days ago. Yeah, a week or 10 days ago, to be fair. More or less around the moment the coronavirus happened. So when we got into the lockdowns and when there was massive problems and when Booking.com and all the short-let providers are closing their doors and cancelling bookings and reservations, that was actually at that time then we were supposed to be doing the final inspection, and then the responsibility would have been ours to pay the rent regardless. Now, what actually happened was because of that coronavirus and the landlord taking far too long to actually finish everything and the property to be handed over in an acceptable condition, the coronavirus happened. The lockdown happened. So I'm not really a fan of what I see all over the internet, which is, all these service accommodation people, the rent-to-renters that have entered into these deals, and then, the second there's a lockdown or the second there's problems in the market or bookings being cancelled, and, they're like, oh, we'll just have the property back, just give it back and just walk away or just fold the company. That's not good. Now, I'm not an advocate of anything like that. So the best possible thing for us, remember, we hadn't entered into the deal because the property hadn't been presented in acceptable condition. However, we'd done all the work. We'd even dressed and styled the property. We sent, $3,000 worth of furniture there. It's already cost us money. We've put money on the meters, etc. There were smart meters, all topped up, all ready to go, ready for guests to move in because we had a relationship with the owner on the properties in the block of flats, and we wanted to get it done as quick as possible, even though we hadn't actually done the final inspection. As the coronavirus happened, because we hadn't done the final inspection, because we hadn't ticked the box and signed everything, so we're now responsible for the rent because it wasn't done, probably by about 3 days or even 2 days, I had to go back to the owner and renegotiate, which was a difficult conversation to have, and, try and keep this deal alive. Otherwise, we would have lost a lot of money from everything that we put in, all the time we put in, all the effort, our handyman and, contractors we sent around there and cleaners, and we sent $3,000 worth of furniture, all the work that we did with the joint venture partners over there. It would have been a complete waste. So I'm always looking at other ways where you can think differently, you can think outside the box, a bit of lateral thinking to try and make sure this turns into a win-win for everybody instead of a lose-lose, okay? Let me step in real quick. I share a ton of business and investment tactics on this show, and it's a shame that there's no interaction on a platform like this, which is why I've created a Facebook community group called Property Crash Course, where I get to answer all of your questions. So you just post a deal or post a question and I'll show you where the money is in your deal or answer your question for you. So help me to help you in your business right now by asking me anything you need help with. Does that sound fair? Just go to Facebook and then search the groups and then type in Property Crash Course. Now, I had to have a difficult conversation with the owner. Usually I just work behind the scenes. This is something that the joint venture partners would do. They do everything. I give them, I finance the deals. I give them, all of the mentoring that they need, the coaching calls, the structuring of the deal and, going over the contract and making sure everything's right. They do the frontline stuff, okay? I'm behind the scenes. Nobody even sees me in that sense. I don't get involved. I'm just like a silent partner, silent investor, like an angel investor in their company. It's their company, but I'm obviously working behind the scenes and hold shares in their company in that sense, okay? And it got to the point where I had to then take the reins. So we had to do a handover. So the owner's never spoken to me. He doesn't know who I am, etc. And then I've had to come in to unravel the problems and help the joint venture partners that have never been in waters this deep before, don't know what to say. They can say the wrong thing. And we've lost, 10 grand. 10 grand's gone with everything that we've done, all the time and effort and the styling and the furniture pack. Everything that we sent, we just lose all the money. Hey, podcasters. Now, you guys know that I share a ton of tactics, a ton of strategies and information that's actionable on this show, all in aid to help you get a step closer to everything that you want. And I know that many of you guys have some questions about those exact tactics and strategies that I share. Now, because I want to give my listeners as much value as possible, I'm answering all of your burning questions on the next show. If you want your questions answered, all you need to do is tweet me at RyanOttoX or DM me on Instagram at RyanOttoX. You can either message me on LinkedIn /RyanOtto, or you can even find me Ryan Otto on TikTok. Now, I know that human beings are complicated, especially when our own beliefs can hold us back from what's right in front of us. Now, because you know what it's like, we can sometimes have all of the information that we need, but the confidence that we need to execute on that tactic or that strategy may only come from asking the right or deeper questions and then having them answered, which is the unlock. Now, that's why I want to give you as much value as possible by answering all of your burning questions. Now, you can find me on any social platform that you're on by searching Ryan Otto and just ask away. And I will answer them for you on the next show. Especially if they just said the wrong thing, like change their mind. We don't want to go ahead with the deal now. We can't go ahead with the deal now. Or something's happened or etc., etc. So I had to then step in. It was a delicate situation. They had to introduce me in a particular way for then the owner to then trust me and then deal with me only. And obviously the partners have been just moved out of the way. So anyway, what I managed to do is renegotiate that deal, which was a good deal the day before the lockdown or before the pandemic a pandemic. Literally on that day or the day after, a deal that was a good deal turned into a bad deal. It only turned into a bad deal because there's no guests traveling right now. The country's gone into a lockdown. We don't know how long the lockdown will be. So to launch a building of service accommodation apartments in Southampton during the lockdown, where you're just then committed, is basically suicide. It's just suicidal. Nobody in their right mind would do it because you're locking yourself into a loss for probably the whole of that year. because, it takes time to get the money back that you've invested, and you normally get it back within a certain amount of time. But starting on the back foot and during a lockdown, you're just locking yourself into a loss. So I couldn't have that. There is no point in having all of that money, my money, tied up in this particular deal that's not going to work for me or perform for me or give me a return or anything at all in the first year. It's just wasted, putting 10,000 over there, just dropping 10 there, dropping 10 there, another 10 over there, knowing that it's not going to work for me or produce any income at all that year. It's completely written off. So that's just complete madness. So I had to renegotiate with the owner, which was difficult, which was very delicate, and come up with a solution that turns into a win-win. He wins, we win. So nobody loses, or a no-lose deal. So nobody loses. That's the plan. So what I managed to renegotiate is we're delaying the start of the contract. That's it. So we're delaying the guaranteed rent period, okay, which would have started right on the day that we went into the lockdown, or right on the day that it was turned into a pandemic, okay? Now, we managed to delay that for a certain amount of time because we're not underwriting any guarantees right now for rents. It's madness to start it, locking ourselves into a loss. So what we managed to do is just work together, and I came up with a solution that we would manage the property instead to start. We're going to review this every 3 to 6 months. So really 3 months is enough to review it. So instead of leasing the property or leasing the building, we're going to switch that into management instead to start. Now, what's that done for us, and what can it do for any of you guys that are in the same situation, a similar situation? Maybe you've got a bad deal that was a good deal last week. It's a bad deal this week just because of what's happened, and you may not have the funds to cover it, or you don't want to take on all that risk and that burden. There is the option for you to renegotiate that deal on better terms for everybody, okay? The landlord doesn't want to be given the property back to try and rent it now. It would lock him into a loss for, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, who knows, during the pandemic and the lockdown. How long would it take for him to rent it? Could he get tradesmen there, contractors there, removal companies there? Can people view it? Can people even move in? Are they allowed to? Is it against the law? Who knows? The best thing to do, which is what we did, is just open the dialogue, ask the question, basically presented a new offer that the owner just could not refuse exactly now in the current climate with everything that's happening. Not taking the piss, but putting an offer like the Godfather, making them an offer they can't refuse. Now that offer was made up of, we will find you a tenant, we will manage the property, we will guarantee no evictions. Now there's a way that we do that without us guaranteeing the no evictions and taking the hit. And we will make sure that we charge them much lower than any other agent would charge. Then what we would do is review the guaranteed rental contract and delay the start from 3, 6, or even 12 months. So we're going to review it together, and as soon as we're past this pandemic, things go back to normal, or as normal as they can go back to, and we can operate the building as a service block of flats, then everything goes back to how it was. So we've just parked that agreement. We haven't penciled in the start date. We're just delaying it, and we're reviewing it more or less 3 months at a time and just see where the market is, okay? How do we earn money from this deal? It's turned out that we still earn money from this block of flats, and we've entered into a different deal. So we said we would do tenant finding instead. Other agents are charging, 50% of the first month's rent, 3 weeks rent, some of them. Some are doing deals because of the climate. But we just made them an offer, or I made them an offer they couldn't refuse. So I said, look, we'll find you tenants every single time, and we'll only charge you £99 on each flat. That covers our costs. I also said we'll manage the property, and we'll only charge you 12% on each property in the block of flats. That's all we'll charge you, and that includes us leaving all of our furniture in there. As you can imagine, we put $3,000 on a furniture pack. That's in each property in the block of flats. Maybe a bit less than 3,000, how it worked out, okay? But it's fully furnished, styled, dressed, washed, microwave, kettle, toaster, ironing board, bedding, spare sets of bedding, Hoovers, everything you can think of, all the dressing styling. So it's a fully functional service apartment. Okay, so we put all of that in. It just arrived. It just literally arrived, and the next day was a pandemic. It just arrived. So it works out that we're going to leave all the furniture in each of the apartments. It still belongs to us, of course. What we'll be able to achieve now, which is higher because it's a fully functional corporate let, service accommodation, holiday let, which means it'll be more rent above the local market rent that the landlord would have got for an empty property. At the same time, all the rents have come down because now there's a glut of properties on the market. You know, every service accommodation provider, everyone on booking.com, everyone who was on Airbnb has now got these beautiful properties with towels on the beds and toiletries in the, you know, bathrooms and Netflix and Sky and all the channels and everything, and they're offering them on the market now. So tenants have got masses and masses amounts of choice, which means they're getting better deals. That's just how it is. So the rents have already gone from here to here. We've added the dressing, the styling, the furnishing, etc., which takes the rent normally above where it was before, but it's more, let's come back down to what it is, even though we've put the extra things in. But if it was empty, the rent would probably have to go from here down to here for the landlord, okay? So he understands that really the reality is the new tenants are paying us for the rental of the furniture and the management fees. Really what they pay extra is the loss that he would have got. So really they're paying for that because now we've achieved more for him and that covers our fees, so he's happy. The £99 is very manageable. It's more or less next to nothing, so he could not say no to that. We've delayed our contract for a while and we can offer a guaranteed rent. The way we offer a guaranteed rent without putting our company or our neck on the line to guarantee the rent is we're only issuing licenses or holiday rental agreements to all of the clients we're looking for. And we're only putting them in on short-term contracts up to 12 weeks, no more to start. That's just to start. If they wanted longer, that's fine. We'll deal with that at the time. But to start, we're offering a holiday rental contract up to 12 weeks and they're paying the full term in advance. That minimizes and mitigates our risk. We've got all the money up front from the tenant, which bridges the gap. We send all the money to the landlord. He's happy. So there's no, missed rental payments or anyone doing this, moving in 1 month and refusing to pay the rent or not being able to pay the rent as well. That does happen. Some people may take advantage of this, especially with Boris adding another 3 months protection from eviction. It normally takes around 5 months to evict someone, so now it could be 8 months, so nobody wants that. So every landlord is nervous right now thinking, oh my God, if I'm looking for a tenant, is this going to happen to me? Am I locking myself into a loss? Shall I just leave the property empty instead and then I don't lose anything or any damage or don't lose as much as putting a tenant in who doesn't pay the rent and then I've got to take him to court and then I've got to wait all this time and then they do damage to the property. More and more problems. So it's basically an offer that the landlord can't refuse. £99 to find a tenant. 12% to manage. We leave all our furniture and styling and dressing in every single apartment in this block of flats. And we guarantee that there's no risk from eviction. Okay? Now they can only do that with us. So we're using our contract, a different agreement that landlord's never heard of, never used, doesn't know falls outside the Housing Act. But we're investors. These are our skills. This is how we've added value just by doing something different. So the property still makes money for us every single month. Every single month. We've already put one tenant in. We've got another tenant about to go into one of the other flats. There's a block of flats and we're tenanting it now and fast, even during the pandemic. Right now we are Saturday recording this. Friday, somebody else just moved in, a doctor. Moved in yesterday to one of the flats upstairs, okay? So it's just a win-win all round for the landlord, win-win for us as a company. We just get to delay things. Now we've completely minimized and mitigated our risk. We're not tying up £10,000 for, this flat, that flat, that flat, each flat in the block and to not get any money back and to take all of this risk. We've literally just, put everybody back to neutral positions, but he's still getting his rent and we're managing to make several £100s per flat every single month at the same time by now managing the property but doing things differently. Okay, so The negative consequences by going back to landlords and renegotiating some of the deals, you could lose the deal. We could have lost the deal. The landlord could have said no. He could have retained all of the furniture. He could have been very difficult. He could have not let us have the furniture back. He could have not let us have access to the property. He could have just said, no, he's not doing it, take it or leave it. And then we could have lost everything, all the hard work, all of the money, all the investment, the furniture, the styling, the maintenance, the contractors, the deep cleaning we did on each apartment. I mean, basically everything. We worked for 4 months, or over 4 months it went on for. We could have lost everything. He could have said no. Okay, so there is negative consequences you need to think about to make sure that you've put the right offer in and restructured it in the right way to make the landlord an offer they can't refuse. If I would have said 3 weeks rent as a tenant finding fee, he would have just said absolutely no way, doesn't work for him. If I would have said we want 18% management for a short let like some companies charge, I won't mention their name, he would have said absolutely no way, doesn't work for him. So we had to position an offer in the right delicate way that he couldn't refuse, and he didn't refuse it. Okay, now let's think of the positive things that have come from this. There's no outlay for us. There's no outlay for me. I don't need to put any money into that deal right now. At the same time, it's not going to make any money the conventional way or the way for the strategy that we wanted to use on that property, because there's no one traveling in that particular area. We're going to be launching the block in the pandemic during the lockdown. Bad news. There's no money there right now. There will be, but right now there isn't. So we've completely mitigated everything right now from the start. So we've got no risk, no outlay. We've actually turned something that would have made us a lot of money to then making us nothing at all, because we're not going ahead with the deal right now or delaying it. And then we turn that into an opportunity where we're getting management fees, we're getting tenant finding fees, we're getting commission on monthly management fees, etc. And we're providing accommodation and solving the problem for the landlord at the same time. So we're getting lots of value back there, and it generates more income for the company when it could have generated zero. Okay. The risk as well, we've minimized our risk, and at the same time we get to hold on to the cash, like I just said, instead of having it tied up during this pandemic. So what I mean by that is, or this episode is, when you've got this problem in front of you and you're thinking of backing out of a deal, or you're thinking this pandemic has happened and there's no other options, and you're just covered, or engulfed in fear or procrastination, the best thing to do is to sit down, to brainstorm with somebody else, so they can have new ideas, fresh ideas, and just look at it from a different angle. Okay, this was the deal, which was a good deal yesterday. Today, that good deal has now turned into a bad deal. How can this situation be turned around so it's win-win for you, win-win for the landlord as well, or win-win for the investor, or win-win for the vendor? This is, it's just transferable, this strategy, onto any deal you're looking at, or even a company that you're buying, or even a property that you're buying, or even a house that you're renting, or even a flat that you're leasing, or even a guaranteed rental contract you're about to enter into, or a joint venture you're about to enter into. The landscape has changed. The game has changed like that. The market has changed like that. So you need to adapt, and you need to adapt quick, because if you don't, you could either sink, or you can obviously rise to the top of this. You could thrive during this. You can still increase your income to your business instead of locking yourself into a loss. Pick up the phone, talk to the vendor, talk to the landlord, talk to the partner, talk to the company, talk to whoever it is in front of you, because there is ways to restructure things. Doesn't matter how far down the line you are, where you are on your journey, how many months into the deal or years you are into the deal. If it cannot work financially for you anymore based on what's happened, which is out of your control, there is definitely ways, clever ways, skillful ways to restructure that deal so it's win-win for you, and it's win-win for the owner, for the vendor, for the landlord. He's a #1 Amazon bestseller. He's an NLP manipulator. He's a property course seller. He's a Lamborghini driving multi-millionaire property guru. Forget that same old boring I am me narcissistic podcast format, because nobody gives a f***. This podcast is all about you. So I'm taking these few seconds to thank you for subscribing, to thank you for leaving your 5-star reviews, and thank you for sharing this show with all of your friends. My team and I will keep bringing you these episodes and answering all of your burning questions in my Facebook community group called Property Crash Course. If you can just keep telling all of your friends about this show.